What's up, guys? Michael Corsentino for Shutter Magazine with my July 2017 lighting tutorial. This month, I'm taking you behind the scenes for a location portrait shoot, a family shoot, for a band that I work with. So I will take you behind the scenes and show you how I problem solve on location, because as is often the times, things on location don't go as planned, which is sometimes a good thing because you end up with kind of happy accidents. So we'll take a look at some of that. So here you can see the finished shot, and we'll kind of reverse engineer and deconstruct how I created this, how we got here, how we ended up at this image, and the techniques that were used and the tools that were used to get here. So this is an image of Eric Joseph and his wife Danny and their new baby Asher. Eric is the guitarist for a band called Blame the Mono, here based in Orlando, Florida, and that's a band that I do promotional work for often. So new baby, perfect time for a portrait. And I wanted to create something badass for them because they are kind of a badass family. And Eric has this really cool muscle car. And I had seen an image that kind of inspired this, which is going to kind of take us on one route, and we kind of ended up here. So you'll kind of see how what my starting point was and where I ended up. So let's take a look at that. This is the inspiration image, and I often draw inspiration from various sources, and movie posters are definitely one of them, promotional images, etc. And this was definitely one that kind of struck my fancy, and I'd had it in my archives and wanted to produce an image like this, and this seemed like the perfect opportunity using Eric's awesome muscle car. So ideally what we were looking for initially was this kind of road with a nice yellow stripe down the middle and kind of an infinity situation that would kind of create some leading lines and that sort of thing. So we had scouted a location, or Eric had scouted location for us and sent us this picture. And at first blush, I thought that it would work. But when we got there, there were several things that just made it kind of untenable. First of all, you can see here that the line stops there. So that was kind of a drag. I hadn't noticed that, which is my bad, but it happens. So that was one thing. Furthermore, the road was really much more highly trafficked than we had anticipated, given the time that we were there, and the fact that it was on a weekend, etc. So, there were lots of things that were kind of stacking up, making it not a great situation. Obviously the leading lines weren't going to be as powerful as I wanted because this yellow stripe stopped. And, I would have had to do a lot of retouching to get rid of this kind of stuff. Which always kind of just adds more work. But the biggest impediment, and of course the traffic was an issue, but the biggest impediment was the wind. There was just a ton of wind happening that day, which caused problems elsewhere, wherever we were going to shoot, but it made it particularly, difficult to shoot in the middle of the road with the cars. Everything was just kind of adding up to the fact that this wasn't the most ideal location. Now that we were here, that we, probably we'd be better served by, seeing what kind of alternates we had at our disposal. So we took a look around, and we found out that right next to that road was a parking lot. An alternate parking lot, which had a dirt and grass floor for a park that was right next to that road. So we decided to shoot there. And some of the things that I liked about it when I initially saw it were this fence that creates kind of leading lines, and this tree canopy that created a nice kind of space, to put the family and the car in. So again, here's what the inspiration was, and here's where we started off. However, as often happens, my inspiration, when I saw it in camera, and I saw it with the family, I just felt like it wasn't really working as well as I had thought that it would. And here's why. Because this family portrait, even a badass family portrait, in my estimation, I wanted it to be a little bit more intimate feeling, and it felt a little distanced, and it felt more about the car than it did about the family, and that really wasn't my goal. So for me, it kind of missed the mark. When I was looking at it, I felt like it really wasn't quite working the way that I wanted it to. So, here's where we ended up. And I think that if you look at both of these together, I think you'll agree that the image on the left, the tighter image, is a lot more engaging and a lot more, on the mark when it comes to this sort of image, family portrait. Or portrait of anyone really. I think it's just a stronger image and a much more intimate representation than the image on the right, which is obviously pulled back. I mean, I could have cropped into on that horizontal image, but I still don't think that it's as powerful or as intimate and does as much to tell the story of this family as the image on the left, right? So let's take a look at how I created that. Turn off a couple of these layers. So here is the lighting diagram. And you can see here, and I'm gonna show you some behind the scenes images of this as well. But you can see here the family and what their positioning was, and then I've got a large 8x8 California sunbound scrim over on the camera right side of things with two. It's a 1200 watt second pack with two strobes, so it's split between the two of them. It's like 600 watts each, and they are shooting light through there, creating this nice broad light source. Okay, and it's probably about 15 feet away from the subjects, and then we've got an accent light over on the left side, camera left, creating accent light, and that's gelled with a CTO gel, color temperature orange gel, to create this kind of catch light there. So let's just take that off. So you can see what we've got here is cross light, and this is a lighting pattern that I use often, and that a lot of photographers use often because it works and creates a really nice kind of dimensional look, kind of a light sandwich. So you've got light coming from one side and light coming from the other, obviously key light and accent light, and this is a really great lighting pattern. So definitely check that out. Crosslight works every time. It's really simple, and it creates a great look, a great technique. Obviously, you can see here that it creates this nice sandwich where you've got light from here, and then you've got light coming from here, right? So it ends up creating a nice kind of dimension for the subjects. It sculpts them with light, and if you use one light, you can definitely get great results. However, it can end up being a little flatter looking. So this adds a little bit of dimension to the subjects, to the lighting. Now, more often than not, what I was, the original idea was that this would be the sun, right? But the sun was behind clouds, so that's where this secondary accent light and the CTO gel is used to kind of replicate the warmth of the sun. The sun would look like. So that's how I kind of envisioned this initially, and then you get there and Mother Nature isn't cooperating, so you have to come up with a solution for that. And that's really what this whole exercise is all about, is problem solving. So I want to sort of take you through that. All right, so here is a little behind the scenes image. You can see here the Profoto 7B I was shooting with. It's a 1200 watt second pack and the two strobes here and here. Shooting tethered. You can see my laptop there with a little screen on so I can see what I'm doing. Shooting with a Phase 1 IQ 250. The handy Apple box always on set. Ladder, another good thing, always have a ladder with you, very helpful, and plenty of sandbags because, man, it was super duper, probably the windiest day of the year, which was no fun working with an 8-foot scrim. So let's take a look at that. And here you can see my poor assistant struggling with that scrim, sunbound scrim. This flash ended up being relocated over to the other side of things, which you'll see in another shot, for our accent light, and we ended up just using these two strobes right here. So I'm using this large scrim to create a really broad source, okay? Because when you're looking at photographing multiple subjects that are staggered, let's go back to that shot. I wanted to make sure that I had even light front to back. So I needed a really large source, and I needed to be able to place it back far enough that I could make use of the inverse square law. So without getting too deep into that rabbit hole, basically the inverse square law just means that light falls off more rapidly right at the beginning than it does further on down the line. The further the distance away from the light source, the less fall off that you have from the light. So further away, your light is going to be more even over a longer distance than close up. So if I put that light really close to them, Danny is Eric's lovely wife. Let me get back to this screen and see if I can turn this on. Yeah, okay, so Danny right here would be darker than Eric right here because she is further back. So if I place that light really close to them, sort of counterintuitively, you would think they'd all be evenly lit, but no, it's not the case. You need to place that light further away in order to get the even lighting. So that's where inverse square law comes up. And I've covered that in other tutorials, so definitely look at that if that's confusing for you. But the big takeaway is just if you want even lighting from front to back, if you're working with staggered groupings, then you want your light further away, probably about 15 feet away, and you'll get more even lighting. Okay, so let's get back there. All right, so here we are with our scrim, and our poor assistant is struggling because, like I say, it was just crazy windy. We had sandbags, but they were not enough. We needed cinder blocks or something. Okay, so let's move on. Here you can see, kind of getting ready to shoot, you can see the relationship and the distance of the strobes to the scrim, which is also an important consideration. You want them far enough that they're going to be able to provide even light. And you can also, one of the things that I would have done were it not a really windy day is I probably would have had these strobes shooting the other way and shooting into umbrellas, right, like this. And they would have been firing light back toward the scrim to create a more even lighting, less harsh lighting, but there was no way to use umbrellas on this day. It just was not happening. I had planned on using all sorts of, other modifiers, and there was no way. We were lucky to even make the scrim work. All right, so here is, you see the accent light, and here's one of those situations where I had planned to use a strip box, but there was just no way. It kept like flying over, and I only had one assistant on this job, and there was no way. Without someone standing there and holding it, it would not stay put. It would kept falling over because of the wind. So we ended up using a hard reflector, a 7-inch reflector with a color temperature orange gel to create an accent light on the side. And let's go back here so you can just see that real quick, right? And there it is. There. Oops. Let's go back there. Right there. Okay. Got a couple extra lines there, but you get the point. So that's the accent light, and that's why we're using it to create that nice orange glow and replicate the sun on the side of Eric's face. All right, and there you can see my shooting position, kind of giving them a little bit more height and a little bit more drama in the final composition. So definitely, it's really important to always think about your perspective and where you're shooting from. Because if you shoot everything standing from eye level, I would argue that your images are going to look kind of average. So, shoot from high up above, shoot from down below, and you're going to create a variety of interesting looking images. Here you can also see the distance that the scrim is from these guys, right? And that's how we get that quality of light, that nice even quality, because you can see here that Danny is considerably behind Eric if we look at from the focal plane. Okay, let's move on. Now there were some other halfway decent shots, but I still don't think that these are as strong as what we ended up with, which is this. So I wanted to also show you, here you can see the color grading and some of the post work that was done in terms of burning and dodging, because there's always a little bit of that goes on. So I want to be completely transparent and show you kind of what was in camera and what I ended up kind of massaging to make it look a little more compelling. So you can see here that this was a little dark over here, so I kind of opened that up. Same here. Opened up the fabrics and kind of opened this up a little bit because all this was really dark. Same thing with Asher's face was really dark, so I wanted to open that up. Eric's arm, etc., etc. And I also kind of gave it this cool tint, that color grading, and I did that in Capture One Pro 10. which is my go-to raw processor. If you haven't checked out Capture One, definitely you want to take a look at that, even if you're shooting with the DSLR. I shoot with medium format, but it works brilliantly with DSLR as well. It is the, my best-in-class raw converter. It's phenomenal. You'll get great results out of it, so take a look at that. And that's it. That's going to wrap up this month. So I hope that this kind of peek behind the process has sparked your creativity and gotten you excited about shooting on location, given you some ideas about some different ways to work. If you have any questions, be sure and post them here or on the Shutterfest Facebook page. And guys, if you like this information, if you like these tutorials, definitely do yourself a favor and head over to behindtheshutter.com and set yourself up with a subscription to the monthly magazine, which you can have delivered right to your door for a monthly dose of awesome education. And it's also available online. You can also pick it up in Barnes & Noble every month. So definitely go and check that out. Well, anyway, that's going to wrap it up for this month, guys. This has been Michael Corsentino. And until next month, get out there and make some great images. Cheers.